Welcome back to What the Flick. I'm Matt Atchity. This is John Iadarola, host of The Damage Report. In our final segment today, we're going to talk about the most recent episode of Westworld, Season 2, Episode 6, called Phase Space. And I know some people have dropped out of this show. Alonzo's not watching it anymore. A lot of people are fed up. I am continuing to like this. This goes all over the place. A lot of stuff happens. I know there's some complaints that people don't know what's going on. I find that the mystery is working for me.
Yeah. I mean, look, if it was up to me, it would be the sort of mystery that you could theoretically figure out, and they have decided not to go in that direction, arguably, or else I'm not intelligent enough. I prefer like the Harry Potter sort of mystery where it's all there, you just might miss it, rather than like the Lost style of mystery where it's like, well, we're figuring this out after the fact, so there was no way you could have figured it out.
Right.
I'm not saying that's exactly what Westworld is, but it feels a little bit more like that type of mystery.
Yeah, you know, I can't help but wonder, I think that this is a show where the creators know what the internet is capable of, and the way people watch things, and the way they're able to freeze frames and really, really get into the minutia. There was a great instance of somebody knowing that the Russo brothers famous or had added extra things into the Avengers trailer that didn't show up in the movie to throw people off. I think the flip side of that on this is, on Westworld, is that people are adding in pieces that they know will maybe tip their hands in faking the audience in a certain direction, right? I mean, right now, for instance, we're seeing what we assume is Arnold and Dolores, right? But then what we realize, you know, at the end of the last season is that, oh, wait, that was Bernard who had died somehow, and Arnold is some type of recreation of Bernard.
Bernard is a recreation of Arnold.
Sorry, Bernard is a recreation of Arnold, and what they've kind of doubled down on in this season is it's not just are they playing with where in time are we, but even within that, sometimes we don't know if Arnold is Bernard is experiencing something at that moment, or as we saw a couple episodes ago, oh, I'm just remembering this. I'm not really here. And so that it's this almost secondary level of an unreliable narration, and I think that's fascinating.
Well, I think there's a third layer too.
Oh,
that
at least.
It's entirely possible that wasn't actually taking place in the real world. That was taking place in the virtual recreation inside of the cradle. That it's possible that some sort of digital Dolores is trying to create a new digital Arnold, and that's why she referenced fidelity in the same way that the young man in black did.
I haven't gone and watched back on that yet because the final scenes in the cradle are letterboxed.
Yes, so I don't recall if they had done that. I did notice that when I realized, were there bars before? But I didn't realize thematically what that was supposed to represent. Although who knows if they feel bound to do that for every single shot.
I think they would.
Okay, well then I would have to go and see, and maybe if we bring up the B-roll again.
Right, if we see the letterbox, then we know that we're in the Matrix.
I don't think it was letterboxed, but I don't understand. Yeah, unless Dolores was a tool for Ford in a past time to help do the testing of the initial recreation of Arnold as Bernard. But then the question would be, if they did achieve fidelity, which they seem to have, why was Ford able to do it successfully, but the man in black was not?
Well, and I wonder if the difference is that when they tried to recreate Old Man Delos, he knew he was getting recreated. Right, and maybe what I wonder is, because we've changed the name, because we're seeing someone who only is just now starting to understand that he's based on someone from previously, does that make a difference?
Is that why he's falling apart now?
Maybe.
To some extent I disagree, just because in the recreations of Delos, he'd already begun to like twitch in his hand and things like that long before he'd actually figured out that, or been told that he was a recreation. Like I feel like that degradation was happening. Maybe. Before he was told, but I'm not sure, honestly.
Right, but he was also seeing, you know, but we also had evidence he was seeing pictures of the real one and then saying, oh, that doesn't look like anything to me. Right, which is their programming when they get something they're not supposed to see.
Anything that could break the illusion for them.
That could break the illusion for the hosts.
Yeah, it turns out it's confusing. Yeah, look, overall, I don't see any reason to stop watching it. The last 2 episodes, the arc in Shogun World has been incredibly entertaining. I like the focus on Maeve. I think her storyline is one of the most interesting because she's a real character.
Right.
I feel like I don't know. The Man in Black stuff doesn't particularly interest me. I like Dolores' storyline, but they were mostly making her stay in a holding pattern for multiple episodes.
You know, you bring up Maeve and Dolores, and one of the things, I was a little frustrated that I kind of didn't see this coming and as late as or before I finally did, when we see Maeve headed towards the house, it finally occurred to me like, oh, that kid's gonna have another mom, a replacement mom.
We had predicted
They've
that
given
too.
us every clue of that, right? Because we saw Clementine get replaced, we've seen a bunch of people, and so I'm a little frustrated with myself, like, oh, yeah, I guess I don't know what I was thinking would happen otherwise. I am intrigued that the Ghost Nation guy has said to her, you belong with, we're headed down the same path rather than just wipe everyone out the way they've been scripted to do.
Exactly. Also that she didn't attempt to control them.
Yeah.
Which is either an odd mistake to make or it's a representation of the fact that she somehow knows that she can't.
Yeah.
It's possible that the Ghost Nation is the remaining fully controlled Ford brand of hosts.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And then a couple other interesting things, like Dolores seems to be maybe surprised at how effective her reprogramming of Teddy has been.
Well, yeah, and I wonder, she changed some of the base characteristics of him, but does she didn't appear to want to gain control over him the way that she did with some of the other hosts. He's not a zombie. And they warned her when they went to do the transformation that some damage could result. So I wonder if there's going to be some sort of conflict between them.
I don't know.
She seems to have some initial inkling that there might be.
Maybe, right? I figure that they rewrote her programming the way Maeve, or his programming the way Maeve, got her intelligence and her key stats up. But I think that they probably rewrote some of the more pieces, like he's more aggressive, he's more ruthless.
But he also doesn't seem, he acknowledges he was betrayed, but he doesn't seem to care.
Right.
Which implies to me that there was some rewriting, not just switches being flipped.
Yeah, they basically turned him into the Clint Eastwood Man with No Name from the Dollars trilogy.
Yeah.
I hope that I want him to get a poncho because he'll be that cold.
So one thing that I'm wondering about is now that Bernard, if it's Bernard, is still in the cradle, he's hooked in. They took out his pearl, and now he's interacting with this digital backup of Ford.
Right, and he'll run into Neo at some point.
Exactly. And so it looks like it was Ford's pearl that Bernard was recreating and then transporting. And so that means that we don't have human flesh Ford, we have a digital version, but it also implies that there is hardware, and that hardware could be plugged into a host body.
Right.
And right now there's a host body locked into a machine in the cradle. It's intended to be the receptacle for Bernard, but who's to say that that's the pearl that ends up getting put back inside of it?
Oh, good point.
So now we have to question any of the times that we've seen Bernard, is it possible that it's not actually Bernard's mind? It's Bernard's body, but a different mind.
Wow. All right. That's, yeah. All right. Now before we end, real quick, you mentioned something about Evan Rachel Wood talking.
Yeah, she's been tweeting a lot about some of the criticism that she's getting, that people don't like the changes to Dolores. They feel she's too bloodthirsty or, whatever. And so she's been listing all these other characters that have had similar sorts of transformations that are men that are not criticized in the same way, which I think is a perfectly fair thing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, look, going into Westworld that I think that that's where that's going to end up. But
and she said in the tweets, she's been warning that violent delights have violent ends.
Yeah.
Like they were warning since the first episode this was going to happen.
All right. Well, we're going to come back next week and discuss the next episode. So thanks for joining us this week. This has been What the Flick. This is John Iadarola. Everybody can watch you every day at 9 a.m. Pacific time on the Damage Report. So thanks for joining us, John. And we'll be back with you next week to talk more movies and more Westworld.